Good morning again, everybody. Thank you all for joining today and sticking around for our session. I always joke that I'm the most loved and hated part of this session, it seems like, when we get the surveys back. So thank you, everybody, for sticking around. I have been with SEK for going on 4 years now. I think next month is my anniversary. I do have a lot of private accounting experience beforehand. I think I'm up to, if I counted up, like 15 or 16 years. I will say most of my time was spent in QuickBooks Desktop. I didn't really get into the online world until I was here, but man, has it really just taken off. Christine, if you want to go ahead and unshare your screen. I do want to do a couple shameless plugs before we get started in here. SEK does offer user groups specifically just for QuickBooks. Wanted to go ahead and plug some of those dates. Coming up here on October the 1st, we're going to be at the Courtyard Marriott in Hagerstown. We will have a online and a desktop session separately. They're each 3 hours. They are completely free, and you do not have to be a SEK client to join them. We also have on November the 20th a virtual year-end prep where we will go over all the things you would need to know for year-end, specifically 1099s, cleanup, and everything like that. So today I'm going to give kind of a high level, very quick, I think I'm allotted 20-25 minutes of those topics, but you are certainly welcome to come to either of those other events. To sign up for them, you can go to our website, sek.com, and I believe if you click events, you'll be able to find both of those. You can also sign up for our mailers on the website. You can even get that through for other government mailers. I do want to start, as I promised before, with it's actually a YouTube video. And this here is going to be for everybody that even has desktop. This here will show you how to make sure that that subscription stays active. I showed this at the PSAB webinars that I did a couple weeks ago, and everybody really enjoyed them. So I thought it would be beneficial to show this here as well. So I'll go ahead and play this for you.
You can manage your QuickBooks desktop account at your convenience in one place by using the Customer Account Management Portal, also known as CAMPS. In CAMPS, you can edit sign-in information, find your license number, or download products you've purchased. You can also update your payment method, change your primary contact, manage your subscriptions, view your list of orders, transactions, and verify your charges. Let's take a look. To start, go to camps.intuit.com. Your CAMPS sign-in was automatically created for you when you registered your product. This might be different than your QuickBooks desktop sign-in, so select I forgot my user ID or password if you can't remember it. If that doesn't work, try using Claim Account. Claim Account lets you merge all QuickBooks accounts associated with your email address into one. Once you're in, you'll see all your QuickBooks products. Select the desktop tile to go to the CAMPS dashboard. If QuickBooks Desktop is the only product you have, then you'll skip this step. In CAMPS, you'll find your profile information here. If you have more than one company, you can switch between companies. And if you want to transfer ownership of your QuickBooks Desktop license, you can start that here. Select My Profile if you want to change your user ID and password for CAMPS and any other QuickBooks products you have, such as QuickBooks Online or Payroll. However, you can only change your QuickBooks Desktop login information in Product. Now let's look at the CAMPS dashboard. You'll see all your QuickBooks products and services listed. If you select Details for a product or service, you can find your license number, a link to download the product, billing information, and status. You can also cancel a service by selecting the Cancel Service link below the status. Next, you'll see your payment and order activity, where you can search, view, or print your history of transactions or order details with QuickBooks. In the payment method area, you can see which credit cards you're using to pay for each QuickBooks product and service. You can make updates here. Next is where you can change your primary contact if you want. The primary contact should be either the owner of the business or the account administrator in charge of administrative tasks like updating billing information and other sensitive tasks. They have the power to do anything in QuickBooks, so choose this person wisely. Finally, in the account details area, you can change your phone number and address. You can also find your customer account number, which will be helpful if you ever have to contact support. And that's an introduction to Camps, the place where you can manage all your account information for QuickBooks Desktop. Log in now and review your information and make sure it's accurate.
They go over that much better than I ever could. So I wanted to make sure to show that, and they can give a very good example there. I do want to point out again, as she said, that it's very important to choose your main admin very carefully. I know that sometimes people like to put, the board president or somebody like that. And it's just very important, now that, yes, you can go in and change it, but just make sure that that person who is going to be the highest power within Intuit is easily available, because they'll send a lot of security codes to them and everything like that. So again, just be careful with that. Next thing I wanted to go over is probably the second most asked question I get, is just how much does QuickBooks Online cost, especially for those who are considering making the transition. These here are the baseline cost for all of your QuickBooks subscriptions. I do know that we have a couple nonprofits available, or a couple nonprofits joining today. I do want to throw out that there is a website called TechSoup, TechSoup, and you can get cheaper pricing if you are a nonprofit through them. And then SEK, because we are a national account with Intuit, we can also provide a discount. However, if we do any of your compilations, your audits, or anything like that, unfortunately, we cannot provide that because that essentially gives us management making decisions, and we can't offer that to you. But here is, again, this is going to be the new monthly price. Simple Start is going to be the cheapest, most basic option. I do not recommend that to anybody above a sole proprietor, just because there's just not a lot of reporting options. Want to back up just one quick step where I mentioned that you cannot have multiple company files within QuickBooks Online, that you have to purchase multiple subscriptions. You do not have to purchase the same level of subscription for each of those funds. So for example, if you have one fund that only has like a couple checks written each year, there's no payroll, there's no class tracking necessary, you can purchase a smaller level subscription. And then in your general fund, where you need that extra, you need the more robust chart of accounts, or you need more users, you need class tracking and all that, you can purchase an advanced level subscription there. So there is options there for saving a little bit of money with those multiple subscription purchases. This here, real quick, there is another poll question. Did also want to point out that this does not include payroll, and this is a monthly price. So everybody that had desktop or enterprise was used to paying an annual subscription. QuickBooks Online is monthly charges. So that would be $115 or $275 a month. And if you want to get into more of the nitty gritty on what is included, we can certainly have that conversation after this presentation. Just really quick, here is the pricing for the online payroll subscription. I will say QuickBooks Online does offer a very nice feature where they automatically file your tax payments and your filings, your quarterly and year-end filings. So that would be a cost saver if you're currently using a third-party payroll processor. Well, it possibly could. I don't know what you're paying there. But I do want to make note that they are, with online, you do have a little bit of a higher per employee per month charge than if you're currently using desktop payroll service. So that did kind of go up here. And again, if you want to discuss the different features of the different levels, we can certainly do that offline here once the presentation is over. So now we'll get into the actual QuickBooks Online and different things that we have discussed as a panel here, what we would like to go over with you guys today. Where I want to spend the majority of my time is going to be in just general cleanup. So, it's your year end is approaching here quicker than we all want to admit. And just some areas that we see as a whole where we feel like improvements could be made. And obviously, cleanup is a big part of what we do here. Um, so the first area I want to touch on is your chart of accounts. A lot of you guys, I'm sure, have the DCED chart of accounts, and there's not a lot of room there for wiggle room. But what we do see is, before you inputted that, your chart of accounts there, you had old accounts that are still hanging out there. And if you have multiple hands in the pot, maybe the wrong account is being used, and we want to just kind of avoid that going forward. So again, for the purpose of today, we're going to be in QuickBooks Online. However, what I'm getting ready to show you how to merge accounts is done the same exact way in your QuickBooks desktop file. So again, we're going to go down here. Here is an example that is set up. So we have it under legal and professional fees, we have accounting and bookkeeper. So let's say bookkeeper was used before. Now you want everything to be used in accounting. The beauty of merging accounts is that it will keep that historical data that was in this bookkeeper account and move it up here to accounting. So how we're going to merge these accounts is you want to go into the account that you're going to keep. So in this example, we're going to keep accounting, and we're just going to edit this account, and we're going to copy the account name. The reason I suggest going in here and actually copying the account name is because in order for this to work, you have to have the name typed exactly the same, or else it'll just create another account. So now we're going to go into the account that we want to essentially get rid of. And we're just going to paste that account name in here and hit save. Now QuickBooks is going to alert you that you already have an account with that name. Would you like to merge the two? And we're going to select yes, we want to merge them, and then hit save. So now you'll see if we scroll down here, as long as I don't go past it again, now we are only down to that accounting. And again, that is the same exact principle in QuickBooks Desktop if you currently have. Another thing that we suggest is if you have an account that has no historical data, so let's say you just created your QuickBooks Online account and you want to get rid of some of those default accounts that you don't want, you can just go in and make them inactive. So let's say, for example, you want to get rid of this equipment repairs account. All you have to do is just go in and select the make inactive, and it'll remove that from your chart of accounts. One reason that deactivating is also important is because if you have a lower subscription level, there is a number count that you have to stay under for your chart of accounts. I think it's like 250 accounts that you can only have. So if you're getting close to that number and you have accounts that you don't use, you can just go in and deactivate them. Next thing I wanted to touch on is what to look for whenever you're looking at your reports, and what are some red flags of areas that you'll need to clean up. A couple accounts that are used more than we would like to see from an accounting standpoint is going to be accounts like uncategorized assets. Anything really that says uncategorized or miscellaneous, we're going to take a look at, especially if it has a higher than normal balance. A lot of times you'll see this, it's either a miss key whenever you're adding it, or ask my accountant, obviously is used for questions that you have for us. We do suggest that before your audit or any sort of compilation agreement is being done, we have those discussions beforehand. It'll save you some time in the long run, and at least then we'll know going forward. It is also important that if you are adding something to those accounts, say miscellaneous or the Ask My Accountant, client inquiry, any of those, non-typical accounts, is that you do put a lot of memos, descriptions, put some notes in there. I don't know about you, but if I put something in there 3 months ago, it's probably going to take me a while to remember what that transaction was. Also, one thing to look for, especially when you're looking at your balance sheet, is going to be negative amounts. Never should you have any, sorry about that, any sort of negative amount, especially in your liabilities. Sometimes we see this here with your payroll liabilities. Sometimes whenever you're entering those payroll tax payments, everything gets put to an expense account versus getting hit against that liability. So just some different things to look for there. Negative accounts are usually a red flag. And then another one that I wanted to touch on was this here, this opening balance equity that currently has 9337 in it. In all actuality, this opening balance equity account should always be zero. Where this balance comes from is whenever you're adding a new account. And at the bottom here, I'll just show you really quick. So if you go in here and you're adding a new account, down here in the center part here where it says opening balance, if you put a number in here, it is automatically going to throw it to opening balance equity. So our suggestion or the best practice would be, so let's say you're adding a loan for a vehicle that was just purchased. Whenever you're adding the loan, you would not do your opening balance here. You would keep this blank and then do a journal entry to properly add both the asset, any sort of fees, and then fund that loan within there. So anytime you put an opening balance in here, you're essentially just creating more work for yourself. And again, that could be something that either ourselves or your accountant can walk you through whenever you're doing that. Something else would be, again, back to the negative accounts on your profit and loss. We don't want to see any negatives, obviously, in your income. Obviously, there's, a couple of chances where that, or circumstances where that would be applicable. But for the most part, we're not in the business to make negative income. Something else that I like to suggest to everybody is to run a profit and loss comp report or a comparison report. A couple different reasons to run this. The most is to look for anything that is out of the ordinary. So if we just do this fiscal year, and then if you click on compare, you can do prior year. Unfortunately, in the sample file, there isn't anything to look at for prior years. However, if you're scrolling down through and you see that your automobile expense, let's say this was $1,000 and last year it was $113. Is there something in there that, maybe was misappropriated, or did you just really have that much more of an expense? Something else to look for would be like in a repairs and maintenance. Let's say you see that there's a $5,000 increase over last year. Is there something in there that should be capitalized or should be moved to, your fixed asset reports? Or did you truly just have that much repairs and maintenance? So a comparison report is just a really good way of looking for anything that was entered incorrectly, again, by yourself or by somebody else. We all make mistakes. The last thing that I wanted to go over would be your outdated transactions. And there is another poll question. The last thing I wanted to go over again was outdated transactions. So these here, what I'm referring to is when you're doing your bank reconciliation and you have a lot of unclear checks, deposits, or ACH payments. The most important thing to remember here is to do this once all of your bank statements have been reconciled. Again, that goes for your actual bank accounts, checking, savings, and as well as your credit cards. Bank reconciliations, I feel like, are probably the most underutilized. It's scary how many people do not reconcile their bank accounts. But as an accountant, that should scare me. So what I like to suggest is whenever you're ready to go in and clean up some of those unclear transactions, the easiest way is to go to your total for your bank accounts. And if you just click on the number, it'll open up a more detailed report. Once you're in here, you can go in and filter this account. And you can come down here and select cleared. And then you would just do uncleared. And once QuickBooks catches up here, it will bring up all of your uncleared transactions for your different checking accounts. And then you can start to go down through there and select what, if it's an old check, why was it not cleared? You can look at it on more of a transactional level. I will also say that if you do have uncleared checks for more than 3 years, that does need to go to unclaimed property. That is just a website out there that goes to the state of Pennsylvania, where you would go and put the check information in there, and then that individual then would be responsible for going out and claiming that property. I will say that's also an area that you can go and look for unclear or unclaimed property for yourself. I attended a conference a couple months ago, and a individual was there from the unclaimed property for Pennsylvania and ran multiple people who were in attendance, and there was only over $14,000 worth of unclaimed property just for the individuals at that seminar. So you might have some free money out there. Nothing in life is free, but that might be considered free money. Again, just do want to remind everybody that if you have questions as I'm going through this, you can submit them through the Q&A. I'm trying to keep an eye on that. One other thing I wanted to touch on here with the unclear transactions. So let's say you're going through there and you see that a transaction is a true duplicate, meaning you could go up here and you search the amount and you see that the amount and the check is in there twice. Maybe once it's in there as a check and the other time it's in there as an expense. Then whenever you go in and void that, if that transaction came through your bank transactions window, it will show up again. So it's very important that whenever you're doing this cleanup work, that you go back here to your bank transactions window and make sure that you exclude any of those old transactions. So everything in this window here is, unposted, meaning it's not actually reported as an expense or income. So once you're done going through and cleaning up all those old transactions, I do suggest that you come here to your main bank transactions window and just exclude all of those transactions so they don't inadvertently get added again. All right, next area I want to touch on, and this is a very hot topic. So again, this will be touched on again during our year-end virtual webinar on November the 20th, but that is going to be 1099s. So QuickBooks Online has come a long way in their 1099 processing. 2 years ago, I would tell you that I didn't trust the reports. However, they have gotten a lot better with their 1099 wizard within the software here. A couple things that I wanted to point out when it comes to 1099s in QuickBooks Online. One of the biggest things that we saw last year is QuickBooks Online. So obviously you have your customers and your vendors. Customers are people that you provide the service to. Vendors are people who are providing you a service. One thing that we did want to point out is if you inadvertently write a check or enter a bill and use the customer, for example, here we'll go in and just add a bill so you can see when you inadvertently use a customer instead of the vendor, that customer related transaction will not show up on a 1099 report, even though it is in there as a bill or a check. So whenever you're searching for your vendor, obviously here it says vendor, and I don't think there's customers in here, but it will bring up customers whenever you start typing your name. So just make sure whenever you're entering your bill or your check that you are selecting vendor, not customer. Also wanted to take a moment to show you how to properly input the 1099 information whenever you're entering a new vendor or whenever you receive that 1099 information. So down here, Computers by Jenny, she's probably providing you some sort of tech support, which would obviously require a 1099. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here on her name, and that will bring up her vendor profile. And then we're going to go in here to edit. And then about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see here is where you would add her tax ID number and then select the track payments for a 1099. Another question we get asked a lot is what happens if we can't collect that W-9? The best practice suggestion that we have for you is you just simply do not provide payment until you receive a W-9. You know, you are within your rights to do that within means. I know a lot of the, like, you know, the sole proprietor guys that are doing this on the side just do not want that 1099. So sometimes you might have to withhold that payment. I will say also that we have a software where we can get those 1099s. You know, if we have ever issued them a 1099 before, we do already have that information on file. Another thing I wanted to show you here is if you scroll up just a little bit, you can add attachments within the vendor profile. This here is where we would suggest that you store that W-9. It is, again, a cloud-based software, so that information would stay there. If you just add attachment, it'll take you right out to your file explorers there, and you can find that information. You can also store any contracts here that you would like to have for this vendor. So adding attachments in this window would be on a vendor level. Also wanted to show you that if you go in here and you're adding a bill, at the bottom of the screen here, you can also add attachments. So if you wanted to add invoices or anything specific with this bill, you can add that here, and that would be on a bill level. You cannot see the bill level attachments when you go into the vendor level attachments. Another area I wanted to touch on is payroll. Obviously, I don't have any employees here in this sample file to show you, but something else that we suggest whenever you're doing this year-end cleanup prep work is to go in and just do a double check of all of your employee information. You are obviously within your rights to go and ask the employees, just make sure there's been no address changes. Make sure that you have an appropriate social security number so everything gets filed correctly, especially with the feature of always having everything cloud-based and everything being automatically filed with the different tax departments, meaning your IRS, your states, and all that. It's very important to get that information in there and updated before year end. If you are signed up for the auto filings, I believe once 12/31 hits, it will not retro any of those changes. So I know here at SCK for our payroll customers, we actually print off a list of social security numbers and addresses just to make sure that that information is correct with third quarter. So coming up here in October, we tried to do an audit of all of that information. I do see a question that just came in. If you issue both a 1099 NEC and a 1099 miscellaneous to the same vendor, do you need to set them up twice? No. So the NEC versus miscellaneous, for those that don't know, is non-employee compensation, and then obviously miscellaneous. Those will be, I guess through the wizard, those will be separated based on the expense account. So you can set up that EIN and that tracking just the one time. The NEC versus the miscellaneous will be done based on the expense account later.